Hey everybody, this is Pounding Rocks, and this is kind of truck related, but it's more like just kind of a ramble about just being cautious and wise about how much money you're going to drop into some of your project trucks. We all know how wonderful the economy is doing these days, and it's like the scene from Prometheus, which was like almost half the movie, of which way was the spaceship gonna fall when it was standing up in the air, and you're just like, which way is it gonna fall, which was half the freaking movie. And I hated that movie. I had such high expectations for that movie, and I thought it was just completely dumb. But anyways, we don't know which way this thing is gonna fall. I can tell you right now that every day that I log in and look at the news reports and all that great stuff and all the stuff I'm following on YouTube, I can tell you right now that it's not looking good. We have little spurts of goodness here and there, but I think that what's happening is that we're being led over a cliff. We're being told that the economy is the strongest that we've ever seen, and we're in recovery and all this stuff. And I don't know how many of you actually believe that, even though the stock market seems to be up, but it really is not painting a good picture. One thing you got to remember when it comes to looking at the stock market is that that is a trailing indicator of what's already happened. And so by the time the stock market has moved in any which direction, whatever caused it to do that has already come and gone, good or bad. So, for some people it's good when it goes in a downward direction because they're diversified. Their portfolio is diversified in order to be able to cover situations like that, as well as when the stock market goes up. But that's for the people that really have the funds to do something like that, which does not include people like me, and I don't know how many of my audience does. I assume that maybe some of them do have the ability to gamble on the stock market and continue to spend as if the world is not on fire. And if you do have that ability, that's awesome. I'm actually very envious, and I hope that some of the positions that I've put myself in the last 6 months will bear fruit for me. And one of the sad things that is kind of on the back burner now is my desire to purchase custom parts for any of my trucks. And this is kind of where I wanted to talk to you guys about it and say that right now is probably not the best time to be dropping tons of money into your D21 Hardbody pickup truck. Unless, of course, it's a sought-after model like a Desert Runner, or second up in that list is an SEV6 extended cab 4-wheel drive, low mileage. Even though the value of these trucks have gone up, the car market is on its way down. So any money that you put into these trucks now is not really going to be realized if you go to sell and turn around, unless it's a really sought after model. And even then, something like a Desert Runner kind of appeals to a specific audience and not a broad audience. So even though the truck's values have gone up, its audience is still rather limited, especially compared to, say, a Toyota pickup of any rural year. For some reason, the Toyotas are worth their weight in gold, even though they really aren't. But there's a stigma, and it's because I think it's the clout that comes from being Marty McFly's dream truck. And I guess anything that says Toyota on it is now a dream truck. But the Nissan Hardbody, for even though it's had its time on the screens and everything, has not developed that kind of clout. And therefore, if you presented somebody with a desert runner, like an average Joe on the street with a desert runner, they wouldn't understand it. So you wouldn't be able to sell average Joe a desert runner based on the rarity of it. They probably won't get it. So just bear that in mind, that they're worth a lot of money to a particular audience, but not a broad general audience at this point, even though the traction is there. It's just for some reason the market is definitely stalling on these trucks, and from what I'm seeing. So with the way the economy is and where inflation is, and we all know that the inflation number is not really the number that they're advertising. It's down to 6.9. I think it was up as high as 8.4, and then it went down to 7.7, and now I think it's like 6.9, somewhere in there. You have to fact check me on that one, but it's definitely not a good number. And if anyone has followed the cycles of the market when it starts doing stuff like this, you got to be really careful, because for one, we had more demand than supply because of the pandemic and the decisions that a lot of these companies made. And now it's going to be the other way around. The demand is dropping as the supply is trying to get caught up, which means that prices are going to come down. You're going to see Christmas in July, and it's going to be really tempting to go out and buy stuff. But be forewarned that it's not the right time. It is definitely not the right time to be spending money on, big money on projects like something like what I don't think that now. Well, let's use my green truck for an example. I don't think that I'd be able to buy and build the green truck again in this environment. I think I'm glad that I built it when I built it, and of course I'll continue to tweak it as I see fit. But there's no way that I could go out and justify buying some of the parts that I've bought over the years, especially like new parts. I mean, if I got lucky at a junkyard, which I've done many, many times, that would be awesome. But to open up a catalog and be like, yeah, I think I'm going to drop $400 on a set of, torsion bars, now is not really a good time for that. So this is kind of just a warning out there. There's a lot of families that are just using credit cards just to get food and get gas. And when you open up and use a credit card for stuff like that, you're just you're opening up a cycle of what I used to call the door to forever. You're opening the door to forever, because if you can't pay for it now, how are you going to pay for it in the future? I mean, what exactly are you doing? You're borrowing against your future self that may not even be able to pay for it in the future. So at what point have you leveraged yourself into non-existence because you just keep borrowing against yourself, thinking, oh, well, maybe I'll make more money, or, I'll pay this off a little bit. Maybe if I can spread the payments out a little bit. It never works out like that. It never works out like that. I mean, if you run into a lump sum, and there's a lot of people out there that'll do this. If they run into a lump sum, they'll just go out and they'll just buy something. They won't even pay the bill off. I mean, I really think that financial awareness is something that should be taught in school, because you're seeing these families that have gone out and they've bought Louis Vuitton bags and Gucci stuff and all this, and they're running around flaunting all that. And people were buying absurd cars when they were getting stimulus checks. And now that the economy is constricting, it's tightening up, and you're seeing layoffs all across the board, thousands here, 10,000s there. I mean, at what point are you certain that you're not going to be one of those numbers? I'm not certain I'm not going to be one of those numbers. That's why I continue investing in myself in terms of training, whatever classes my company offers to further my career. I want to put myself in a position where they're going to be like, if we let this guy go, we're going to lose, credit hours. We're going to lose a guy that knows the following areas of the business, and we don't want to lose that investment. We've already spent a lot of money on training them. And then I'm also spending more time working on Water Street Decals, my vinyl decal business, selling online. I've branched out and I started selling to various farms throughout my area, that are doing restorations on parts, restorations on farm equipment too, or doing logos for their truck doors, the US DOT numbers, stuff like that. It's like pick up a few dollars here and there, and that keeps a secondary income, the side hustle as they call it, and that helps offset some of the higher prices that I've been paying for groceries and fuel. We all know fuel is, we don't even need to go down that route and how bad that's gotten. But it helps offset some of that, and then I can convert leftovers and excess, which there's really never really a lot of excess, but there's some leftovers here and there, converting that into hard assets. And I hate to be a prepper. I never thought that I would be a prepper. I would say I'm probably like a 15 to 20% prepper at this point. Stocking up on food items, non-perishables, in case there are disruptions to the system. You're not automatically already down to the wire the second this happens. You can look at your stash of non-perishables and be like, okay, I've got 2-3 weeks, maybe even 2-3 months, maybe even 2-3 years worth of food that if there's a disruption, I could sustain myself longer than some of the other people till we actually get this disruption sorted out. And also, I don't know how many of you actually follow the course of the United States dollar and the petrodollar and everything, but it's worth it for you to take as much paper money as you can afford. I'm going to stress that, as you can afford, and convert that into some kind of hard asset. The big ones that everyone talks about online and on YouTube, I agree with. Silver and gold. I do silver rounds, 1 ounce silver rounds, just because you want to not price yourself out of the market in terms of buying, and a lot of people are starting to catch on to this, and it's good because you want to be able to store your wealth. Get some of that. Even if you start with 1 ounce, and it triggers something inside of you that you feel good that you've taken $1 out of the system, paper money out of the system, and turned it into a hard asset. And you can sit on that. Whether it goes up or down, you still know that at some point, if you need to use it, you've got it. And it can be used to barter, it can be used to buy stuff. You definitely want to get on the ground floor. Some of this, while silver prices and gold prices for that matter are still somewhat reasonable. And I'm not saying don't work on your trucks, because I understand that you need an outlet. You need a mental outlet to funnel your ideas and gauge your own personal success. I completely get that. I understand. I've got green truck. I've got Pathfinder pickup Double Dare XL. I've got the other mud truck that's going to be made out of LaRouge. These are all things that I'm going to look back on and say these were accomplishments. But instead of trying to go all in all at once, you got to kind of start taking smaller bites. That's just how it is. I don't want to see anybody starve themselves to death and then look at their truck and go, well, I dropped $15K into a truck and it's only worth $5K, and I did it all on credit cards, and now the roosters come home to roost, and I could be laid off at any given moment in time, and now there's disruptions in the system, and I didn't prepare by having food and all that other stuff. So I think that this is just I'm not giving financial advice. I am not a financial advisor. You guys can do what you want, what you think is appropriate, and what you think you can afford. But I personally don't want to see anybody drowned trying to build a crazy project when they should be squirreling away some supplies. That's what I think. Once you've squirreled away enough supplies and you got some cash on hand stored somewhere in a safe somewhere, and a few hard assets, and then, you know, some other supplies, food supplies, I recommend a generator. It's gonna come to that. I mean, you're gonna need a generator for at least, you know, you might need it for a couple days, you might need it for a couple weeks, who knows. But that's one of those things where you buy it, you put it in the garage, you put a cover on it, and then you pat yourself on the back because you're like, wow, I really have this now, and in case of an emergency, I'm in a position now where my neighbor across the street doesn't have this, and they could be out, their lights could be out, and then that's where you can come in and be like, you can kind of reach out and help pull others up when they're down, because not a lot of people are planning. There's not a lot of planning going on. I don't see a lot of planning. I mean, I see a lot of pullback. There's definitely a lot of pullback. I mean, look at Thanksgiving this year. They're anticipating that like only 60, a little bit over 60% of families are going to actually celebrate Thanksgiving this year because the price of food. So it's like, that's not a good sign. What about Christmas? And those are the biggest times of the year right there. And if people are pulling back now, they're pulling back everywhere across the board. But then there's the status symbols aren't going to mean anything if you can't put food on your table. So as long as your truck is paid off, if you didn't use a credit card or a loan to buy the truck, put a cover on it. Put a cover on it, put it in storage, put it in your garage, and just sit back and just feel the vibe of what the planet's doing, because we're swirling around we're not even on the outer edge of the swirl of the toilet right now. We're more towards the middle, towards the inner middle before you go down the drain. And I know I'm not trying to be doom and gloom to scare the crap out of everybody, but I mean, what was the last piece of good news that you heard that came out of the economy at this point? Just gotta kind of like think of it that way and say, I'd rather be prepared, because you're gonna look back and you're gonna go, oh man, you know, everybody else is now doing a gang rush on the store to get cans of soup, and there's no soup on the shelves, and now I don't have anything because I'm trying to jump over everybody else to get them. And you know, it's, even if nothing happens, say nothing happens, well, guess what? Eat your soup. Eat your soup and go back to working on your truck. Well, that's all, really pretty much all I want to say. I don't want to be the one here that is building trucks on YouTube and leading people over the cliff by making it seem like I'm spending all kinds of money on these projects. I mean, I've pulled back. Right now, Double Dare XL is pretty much all electrical labor at this point. I'm glad I spent what I spent when I spent it, and I'm glad I bought everything right. But could I do these again? No. There's no way. Not in this economy. There's no way I'd be able to build either of those two trucks or even think about it. Anyways, like, share, and subscribe. Sorry this is a longer video. Give it a thumbs up. It really helps the algorithm. And if anybody has any questions, just reach out to me. Leave a comment down below and we'll talk. All right. If I don't talk to you beforehand, have a happy Turkey Day. Take care, folks. Bye now.